Welcome to the UNTIED Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. This is the very first episode of Season 2 of the UNTIED Podcast. I'm really excited about this. I know that you're really excited about this because I'm here with two of my very good friends, Corey and Tyler, and we've got a new season full of all kinds of good stuff that we're going to be sharing with you, and all kinds of great discussions and interviews. This is going to be a great season that is to come. So thank you for joining us today, and we're going to get this thing kicked off. We're going to get it kicked off right with our first segment, which is simply entitled "What's Been Cooking," and that'll probably take us through the end of the episode itself, because we're just going to have an open discussion, open topic about what's been going on with each one of us, our ministries, Excel Still More, all that kind of stuff. We got a lot of things to share. So, guys, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. Just got people banging on the doors over here, but we're good.
When people are beating down the doors to get in the church building, that's a good thing.
I know
That's
it.
a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not for your stress levels in your office, but
Hey, that's
a good
the
thing.
joy of doing things live, right? You just never know what's going to happen.
That is the truth. That's the truth.
Um,
I'm constantly remembering our very first episode where my phone was going off constantly and nothing was working out well. So I'm hoping that season 2, episode 1 will work a little bit better than the first one. So
Well, I guess that's just real life too. We're just three real dudes.
3 real dudes. That's it. That's it. Corey, what's been going
Things are
on with
going
you,
good
man?
though.
Yes. Yeah.
Things are okay. I'm getting over COVID right now, so if I don't know if I sound weird or if my voice is deep. I feel like I can sing bass a lot better right now, so maybe in my mind I sound like James Earl Jones. I probably don't right now, but I am your father, But other
The
than
dr-
that,
The dream of
good.
everyone.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Now, can you imagine preaching with that voice all the time?
You would have everybody's attention all the time.
I'm telling you, if you only knew the power of Jesus, you could really. Anyway, now things are good. Other than that, we've gone through first winter and fake spring in Tennessee, and we're now entering into second freeze time, and so we're up and down, and about 40% of the population here is sick, but maybe that means they're sitting at home listening to podcasts. Hopefully that's the case. I don't know.
Hopefully that is. That's what we were talking about before we hit the record button. About everywhere, everybody's just sick, sick with everything. So if you are listening in or watching this when it goes live or goes on the air, man, we hope you get better. But until you do, and even when you do, tune into the Untied Podcast. It'll bless you.
That's right.
Yeah. It sounds
Oh,
like
man.
Oklahoma's pretty much on par with all of that.
Yeah.
We were at one point number 1 in the country. You got to be number 1 for something, but we were number 1 for the flu. But I'm looking at the map, and it looks like Tennessee, South Carolina, Louisiana, some of those states have overtaken us, which is a real bummer. We like being number 1 for things like the flu. But yeah, same weather
How
patterns
dare
out
you
here.
overcome us?
Yeah, I know, seriously. If we can't be number 1 in anything else, at least give us the flu.
Just one thing, Corey. One thing.
Yeah.
But we've
We've got the flu and COVID and RSV and everything else, I think, right now. So we're trying to lead in multiple polls right now. So,
yeah, but we had our fake. I don't know if spring is even the right word. It was almost like a fake summer. It was hot here on Monday.
Oh,
It
it
got
was
up to, I
awesome.
think, 80 degrees. We had the college students over to our house for our home study, and I said, we're going to take advantage of this and do hot dogs and hamburgers. I know it's one of the first days of February, but if it's 80 degrees outside, I'm firing up the grill. So we did that.
That's good. Yeah, we had the windows open on Monday and Tuesday in the house.
Mm.
Um, it was low 70s here. So
Yeah, it was awesome. My family and I were able to take a little vacation last week, and we were in Florida, and it was so nice. It was 60s, and the hottest it got was like 77. So, man, it was just really, really
Perfect.
nice. And then we came back, and then there was that, Sunday was not really nice. Monday was unbelievably nice. And then Tuesday came. And from Tuesday until now, it has been cold and dreary.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's going to let up any.
Yeah, they were saying today was supposed to be warm, and I mean, I should know. I'm such a fool if I believe meteorologists. I mean, good night. I don't know if there's any other job out there, and if you're a meteorologist listening, I'm sorry, but I'll just tell it how it is. I don't know if there's any other job out there where you can have such a high failure rate and be fine. I mean, I thought Colorado was bad too because they were saying, "Oh, well, we have a winter blizzard coming in. Expect 10 inches," and then nothing. And then Oklahoma, "Oh, tomorrow's going to be real balmy, 65 degrees." I stepped outside this morning. What in the world? Did I skip yesterday or what
Was that
happened?
another
Because
state he was talking about?
it's 30 degrees and it's spitting at me. It's not even raining. It's just in my face.
It's just a constant mist. By the way, if you're a meteorologist and you'd like to sponsor the Untied Network, we will change our attitude toward you.
Yeah. If not, I will still hold my
Not really.
resentment.
Oh man. Yeah, it's definitely working its way into spring at some point, but
Yeah.
all the time, which is probably why everybody's sick. Can't make up his mind. It goes from cold to hot.
Yeah.
yep.
But that is
Well,
the way it works.
I guess y'all had a good holiday though. I've missed y'all, by the way. I got
Yes.
kind of used to talking to you every week, so
Yeah.
Yeah, it was for those who were tuning into our finale for season 1. Tyler wasn't with us, so Corey and I held it down and had a lot of fun. But we sure missed our buddy on here, so now he's back.
Yep. Yeah. Excited to be back. Way back when COVID was first a thing, back in 2020. Yeah. I went to a barbershop one time and I was getting my hair cut, and it was one of those, man, I sound like such an old person. I'm not an old person. I'm 29. I'm still very young, but I went to one of those just younger barbershops where things are a little bit more trendy, a little bit more hip. And so, of course, a lot of the hair cutters are going to be that way. And I sit down to get my hair cut. Before the guy even asked me what I want, he goes, "So you've been bit by the vid yet?" And I thought that's such a great way of saying that, bit by the vid. But yeah, happy to be done with the vid, COVID.
Yeah. Speaking of barbershops, before Parker got married, he got married in South Carolina. That's where they live, and he's only about 30 minutes or so from Charlotte, North Carolina. So before his wedding, they got married in North Carolina, but we went to Charlotte to get our haircut, and he had found a place to do it, and so it was a pretty nice barbershop. Well, we get there right in the middle of Charlotte. We find parking. Finally, we get in. You have to be there like 10 minutes early, or you're gonna lose their spot. He already had it booked for like 2 or 3 weeks. So we walk in this place, and it's an old fire station. And so you walk in, and literal, what you might think old time fire station is, brick walls, really cool scene back there. But we walked in. They've got anything that you want to drink, so they offer you, whatever. And so, you get Dr. Pepper, Coke, whatever. So we got that. They had us wash our hands, and then they said, go sit down over here. So they have these super nice leather recliners. They've got this big old huge pool table over on the side of that. They've got TVs everywhere. I mean, it is like this high class, super nice barbershop. They've got a place downstairs where you can, smoke cigars or something. I don't know. But anyway, they called me up there, and I sit in the chair, and they say, okay, what do you want? I told them what I wanted them to do. And the girl was cutting my hair. And so she said, okay. And she said, just sit back and relax. And I said, okay. She never picked up a pair of scissors. She cut everything with a straight blade, my entire head. And so this is what was crazy. Okay. I've never been to anything like this. I've worked with my hands, rough hands, whatever. I'm just, kind of always thought manly man time, not doing anything girly. Right. Well, this other lady walks up in front, and I'm sitting there, and she's chopping away at my hair. And she said, would you like the massage? I'm like, yeah, I'll do a massage. Well, it was a hand massage. And so she grabs my hand, and she starts massaging my hands. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this is weird. This is really nice. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And so she's massaging. And then they start working on your nails and everything, like cleaning everything up. I'm sitting there going, I don't know what to think about this. I don't want to do this, but it feels great. So it was a really cool experience, but man, it was crazy. She cut my hair. She did the shave and everything. Never picked up scissors. Period. Like she was a professional. I've never been to anything like that. You paid for it.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I know of places like that, but man, you're looking at. I know here in the city, like over $100 for the full deal, and it's like, well,
yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a cool experience, very cool experience. Well, guys, I'm excited about this our new season, man. I can't believe that we are in season 2. There's been a lot of things going on. I know with each one of us, with our congregations and our individual ministries, as we're really working to try and build the kingdom, strengthen the kingdom in every way that we can, and so today is for all you guys who are listening, today is an open topic to talk about what we've been doing, what we've been up to, things that we're studying, maybe ideas that we have, and just to share a few things that we have going on, and who knows, maybe something that we're working on. Ideas that we have, might strike something with you, a study that you've been wanting to do, or maybe in a project you want to do. And so that's kind of our hope that this will help you to. I know that we're a little bit past the new year, but maybe this will strike something in you to start a new study that maybe you haven't done, or do something you haven't done. So that's what this is all about, just kind of talking about what's been going on with us, our ministries. We'll talk a little bit about what's been going on at Excel Still More, the additions that we've had, and all that. So it's just open topic, guys. So, what's going on with your ministry? Are there any exciting things that are happening for you? Where you are, cool stories that have happened, doesn't have to be over the last couple months, but cool things that we could share, or what studies you're going through. I'll just kind of throw it out there, and whoever wants to start, go after it.
Tyler.
I love how we always make him go first.
I know. I should just know at this point. I just thought, well, I'll be polite and allow Corey to go first.
You're shaking your head, and I thought, well, Tyler's really fixing to jump in here, and then
allow the senior of the group to have first shot at this. The senior and the sickly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
The sickly senior.
Well, this is my first semester back at Denver Seminary in a year. When we first moved out here, I thought, well, I'm going to take some time off of school so that we can focus on the ministry and not have ourselves split up in too many different directions, which, by the way, a great book to read we should do a segment on what are you reading?
Yeah.
Books outside the Bible that we're reading. But there's a book called Essentialism by George McGowan. I think he's Mormon, maybe former Mormon. Either way, he's got some sort of faith tied to him, but he doesn't get into faith a whole lot in his book. It's one of more of those secular / philosophy books, but excellent book. He talks about, there's an illustration that I can't get out of my mind where you basically have two circles that he's drawn in the book, and one of the circles has a straight line going all the way up to the top of the page, and then the other circle has multiple lines just scattered out from it. And he said, this is how our mind works, is when we spend all of our energy on one thing, we can accomplish way more. But when we take our energy and we divide it into several different stints, then we're all over the place and we can only get so much done in each of those areas. So he basically creates the premise of his book on essentialism. What are some things in my life that are absolutely essential that I can focus in on? And so that was definitely my mindset as we moved to Oklahoma City. And now that the ministry is starting to kind of be a little bit more stable and secure, I figured, well, I guess it's time to get back to school and hopefully finish up this master's degree at some point. But so I'm taking some courses at Denver Seminary this semester. So that's been very exciting. I forgot how much I missed being in school. So we're studying the letters of the New Testament, all of them. So that's been a lot of fun. And then we're also studying Christian theology. So it's more of just an overview. And Denver Seminary always does a very good job about not making any faith feel condemned. If that makes sense, they're not trying to push an agenda necessarily. They're just giving a big blanket overview of theologies in the world. And prolegomena is one of the big things that they focus on. So anyways, that's all been good. And then for Sundays, we're in Ephesians, and that's been a ton of fun. One of the students, we had like 5 minutes left of class on Sunday. It always happens like this. 5 minutes left in class on Sunday morning, and they asked, we're in Ephesians 3, where Paul is talking about how the church is the manifold wisdom of God, and it's kind of his proof to the heavenly authorities and the heavenly powers. Well, in Ephesians, he uses that phrase, in the heavenly places, at least, 3 or 4 times in the book.
Yeah, I think it's 6 times, actually.
I think
Is
so,
it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's several.
6 times. Well, they asked, who is he talking about in the heavenly places? I've got 5 minutes to explain.
The conversation opens up from there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because you have, good and bad that Paul's going to talk about.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, sometimes reconstructs our ideal of maybe the spiritual realm. And I told the college students before we even started Ephesians, I said, this is a spiritual book. I said, I know you could say that probably about a lot of the New Testament books, but this one is very, very spiritual. He's going to use that word nomos tons of times, or pneumos, talking about the spirit and our spirit and the spiritual, and to get people to hopefully detach from the physical and tune into that. But I just think that idea, I think Hollywood has really sunk into our minds that Satan is already operating out of hell. That's not what we see in Scripture.
No.
In fact, we see a heavenly warfare and also a spiritual warfare taking place. And that just, so that's been a lot of fun on Sunday mornings. We're in Ephesians 3 still this coming Sunday. And then we've been
5 times, by the way.
Yeah,
5 times.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll split it right in the middle.
That's right.
4 to 6. Well, one of the college students, we were in Ephesians 2, and we were going through the prince of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. And I said, whose spirit is now at work in the sons of disobedience? Who is that prince of the air that he's talking about? And one of the students pipes up and he goes, Satan. And I was like, okay, yes. How do you know, though? And he goes, because my Bible tells me. And I said, how does your Bible tell you? And he read it and he said, now Satan, the prince of the air, the spirit whose work is now in the sons of disobedience. I said, that doesn't belong there. I said, what translation are you using? And he said, New Living Translation. I said, okay, well,
Get out of
that's
my
called
class.
interpretation instead of translation.
I think so. That's an interpretation, is what that is.
And I said, as much as I hate that, as a textual critic, it's right. I mean, it's a right interpretation, but that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. And then Wednesday nights, we've just been looking at kind of a 12-week study of how to not give up, inspired by John Wayne.
Ooh, nice. Tyler, who was the author of? It was Essentialism is the book?
Yeah, Greg.
Is it Greg McKeown?
Yeah, it's a weird MCKE OWN.
Yeah.
And he goes and speaks at several different big corporations, Google, Meta. He's one of those types of speakers where he's just all over the place in the corporate world. And then he's a Stanford guy, BYU, and then he's from somewhere over in Europe, probably. I mean, we'll just say UK, just blanket statement that. But he's got an accent to him, which is fun. But very, very good book so far. I'm not finished with it, so if he goes off the rails and gets crazy at the end, I'm not held accountable for that. But
I'll tell you,
I don't think he does.
I really like the idea of us doing a what are you reading? So I've got all these books. I'm like, I want to throw out there. Like, nope, we need to save that. So I will say this, that each one of us, we read probably a lot. A lot of it's for study. Maybe some of it's for fun. But if we throw a book out there, we're going to tell you a little bit about it, who wrote it, whatever. And just like Tyler did, he mentioned who this guy is. If we throw a book out there to you, not all of them are going to be written by members of the church. And some of, there are a lot of books that I have in my library that are great books. But if you like fish, you know that you got to pick the bones out of the fish. And the same has to do with some of these books. So if we throw out a book on here, we want you to know that we'll tell you about it. We're going to tell you a little bit about it, author, all that kind of stuff. But just know that there's a lot of good material that's out there. And sometimes you can take that good material, but you got to understand what you need to pick out because it's not right. So we're just going to throw that disclaimer in there for those who may be interested in new reading material because, man, you can really learn a lot from a lot of people. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Yep.
And even members of the church, sometimes we're not going to agree with everything,
Yeah.
I know. Someone asked me, why are you going to Denver Seminary? That's a liberal school, and they're not Brotherhood. And I said, I could tell you probably 2 universities that I would really trust in their master's programs. And it's not to sit here and just slam universities. I'm not going to name call or anything else, but exactly the point where, just because they are quote unquote Brotherhood doesn't mean that you can take everything. So,
yeah. Which, if anybody's looking to do school of any kind, you just want to know more, there are options out there. There are a lot of options out there. If you want to take, Bible classes or even apologetics classes, Bear Valley, you can enroll in Bear Valley and take some of those online courses. They won't cost you anything, maybe, except for maybe a book and stuff like that. World Video Bible School offers, they offer classes that you can take, and it's kind of on your own time. So if you're really busy and that's how you have to do it, they've got some really good courses. There's a lot of great teachers on there. Denny Petrillo's a teacher on there. I think Dan Owen teaches on there. John Moore, a lot of Chuck Horner, a lot of great teachers on there. So there are options out there. If you're wanting to do more classes outside of Sunday morning, Wednesday night, or maybe the occasional midweek study, there are options out there. And if you have a question about one, what can I do? Where can I go? Shoot us a message. We would love to share some of that with you, some information on some of these things that you'd like, that we think would be good for you and really bless you in your journey. So, well, I'm gonna link this in our show notes, Tyler. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, it's scary because I actually picked up that book. I love going to bookstores, love it. And that's been one of the struggles I think about moving to Oklahoma City is there just aren't as many bookstores. You have your Barnes and Noble and
Right.
things like that. And man, that sounded a lot more elitist than I thought it was going to sound coming out in Denver, where we're all fancy about books. And said, no, we were actually back in Colorado for Christmas, and I was in a bookstore in Boulder, of all places. I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah of America. And they've got a bookstore that they have just tons and tons of different areas. And um, they put philosophy and Christianity right next to each other. And then Buddhism and Taoism and everything else right next to that.
All the isms.
Yeah, all the spiritualisms, I guess. And so I picked that book up, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I sat there almost like when you remember when Blockbuster was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to go and pick up DVD cases and hold them and basically judge a movie by its cover.
Yeah.
That's how it was at the bookstore. And I was just sat there and read it. And then Natalie said it was time to go. I was like, oh man, I've already burned up 30 minutes just reading some of this. So I'd, well, pick that up and read it. But yeah, great book so far.
Yeah. I'm really struggling not throwing a couple out there that would add on to that one, but I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna wait.
Hey, next time you're in Tennessee, this is not an elitist bookstore, but there's McKay's bookstores. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those. Um, there's 5 or 6 locations. I think Nashville is the furthest west one, and I think they go all the way over into either North Carolina or South Carolina. But I know there's one in Nashville, Chattanooga, and Knoxville, and they're it's kind of like a thrift store for books, which is dangerous because you can go in there and you're like, oh, this book is $2 and this book is $1 and this book is $4. And I'm not spending that much until you get a whole pile of them and you walk up there and it's $67, but you've gotten, 15 books or whatever.
Yeah.
And it looks like they do everything else. I mean,
yeah, they
movies,
do
video games.
Yeah, you name it, they've got it. But the amount of book, and it's not just religious books, of course. There's all sorts of, but there's always a huge religious section, and you can find some really good deals on some books. A lot of times that are, you can tell they've never actually. Somebody bought them thinking they were going to read them, and then they never read them.
Mm-hmm.
And or maybe they just read them and then they still are practically new. Like my books, when I usually read a book, I'm highlighting and making notes and stuff in it. But a lot of times you'll find these are perfectly clean. And anyway, so next time you fly into Tennessee, maybe that might be something you want to. They're not paying me to advertise for them, but I'm sure there's other things like McKay's and other places, but it's a really cool place to go.
Yeah. Jeremy, one of the ministers here, was telling me yesterday about a place called Half Price Books here in Oklahoma City. And I'd never heard about that one. So just looking at pictures online, they look similar where they have just about everything in there. We went to a bookstore out here called, I think it's called Full Circle Bookstore. And it was really cool. Just a little bit smaller. I mean, some of those bookstores in Colorado, and I don't know why Colorado in particular is so fascinated with bookstores. I mean, they're everywhere. And B, there's all these different, like Tattered Cover is one of the big ones out there. I mean, of course, you have your Barnes and Noble. And then the one on Pearl Street in Boulder, it is the coolest bookstore. If you've seen Harry Potter, and you have that one room with all of the wands, and you've got the ladder that just swings back and forth where they go up and collect all, and it's old, and the bookstore itself, the foundation is completely gone, basically. I mean, it feels like half the store is leaning this way, and then you go upstairs and the other half is leaning this way. So you're walking through on boards that have been there for 100 years. who wouldn't want to pick up a book and read in a place? I don't know why, but bookstores like that,
They're
they're
cool.
a happy place for me.
They're cool.
Hey, and I'm starting. I started the 1st of January preaching through Ephesians. I didn't know you were teaching through Ephesians, but I'm preaching
Oh
through
yeah.
Ephesians, and that I've preached and taught through Ephesians. It's one of those books that every time I go through it, and I guess every book of the Bible is kind of like this, but that one in particular, I see things that I've never seen before. It just gets
Mhm.
deeper and deeper and deeper, and
Yeah.
it's so simple, but it's so deep at the same time.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm this past Sunday, I was supposed to have started chapter 2, um, but I was out sick. So this Sunday we'll start chapter 2. So I'm further behind than you. But one of the things that I had never noticed before, close to where you were talking about, in that prayer in verse 19 of chapter 1, where he talks about what is the immeasurable greatness of his power toward us who believe according to the working of his great might. Um, I ended up splitting the prayer into 2 sermons. I did one sermon about what he was praying for, the 3 whats that he wanted them to know. And then I did a whole nother sermon on the power of God, because it's cool that, like what's translated in the ESV, the immeasurable, the Greek word looks like our English word hyperbole.
Mm.
So, hyperbole is like he cried a bucket of tears, or,
Yeah.
something like it's an over exaggeration. And so when he says immeasurable, he's saying like it's of exaggerated proportions that no one would believe, that isn't even real. And then the greatness, the Greek word is megas. So mega, you know,
Yeah.
and then the power word and the is sounds like our English word dynamite.
Yeah.
And then the working sounds like our English word energy. So you've got hyperbole, mega, dynamite, energy. I mean, anyway, I some people don't geek out over stuff like that like I do, but when I'm breaking down that verse and I'm thinking, how have I never seen how he's describing the power of God here? It's really cool. But and then he talks about how that he showed that power in resurrecting Jesus, but that power he's working toward us, or in us, or through us, which is kind of a cool thing. But anyway, so we've been studying through Ephesians, and again, it's one of those, every time you talk about, you said it's a spiritual letter. Well, it really is, and the the um, the depth that's there. It's one of those books we think we know, but the more you study it, the more it's there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I love how he says in chapter 1, I knew that this would be a podcast about Ephesians, but here we are. He says that we would be a praise to his glory.
hmm
And that struck me this time. And again, like you, I've read Ephesians several times and I've studied it, but am I living a life? And I asked the college students, and they're great. We love our college students. And I said, how could we, like, how does that make sense that our life would be a praise to his glory? I mean, what does that mean to be a praise? What does praise look like? And they said, well, it's obvious, it's loud, you can tell if someone's doing it, it's noticeable. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at there in chapter 1, is that your life is a praise to his glory. I just think that's such a cool way of phrasing that.
hmm
But yeah, so much stuff in Ephesians. I mean, awesome, awesome. It just, you hate it because typically you look at like prison epistles and they all get clumped together. And man, they're all so unique and so neat in their own ways.
Well, I'm not preaching through Ephesians, but I started a new sermon series this year that I'm actually. It is a big project that I'm doing for Excel Still More, and it originates in Ephesians, because whenever I took Dan Owen's class on Ephesians, it completely it didn't change how I saw the book, but it changed how I understood the book. If that makes sense. And
Dan Owen has that way of
my
teaching.
goodness, yeah, and I'm using my big iPad for our podcast, but I'm trying to pull it up on my small one. But I've got all my notes. I use Notability. I don't know if you guys use that for a lot of my note taking things on my iPad. But the series I'm doing, as well as the project, is called Step by Step, and it's about walking in the footsteps of Jesus. And I took that from actually 1 Peter 2, anyway, but if you go through Ephesians itself, it tells you how to walk,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really awesome. I mean, you talk about the heavenly places that is in, if you understand the idea of heavenly places, it really helps you to understand the spiritual warfare that you're in. So, like, I've always understood Ephesians to be discussing a spiritual warfare, but I'd never understood it from the depth that I do now because of my understanding of that phrase. So the rulers, the principalities, the authorities, all that stuff in the heavenly places or in the heavenly realms. Okay, now it's no, and I think that we mentioned that last season, that we're not talking about earthly government and things of that nature, but when you put on the full armor of God, it literally is His armor. And in order to gain that armor, you got to understand how to walk. I love what Dan Owen said in the class. He said, if every Bible in the world were burned or taken away or lost, and you could only have one chapter to memorize to be able to bring people to Christ, to be Ephesians 2. And I thought, man, that's so true. But if you look at all the walking passages, there are actually 7. Chapter 2 and verse 2 discusses this, 2 and verse 10, 4 and verse 1, 4 and verse 17, 5 and verse 2, 5 verse 8, 5 verse 15. Each one of them, and I think probably chapter 4 and verse 17, chapter 4 and verse 1 and verse 17, really help us to kind of understand the direction that Paul's going. He says in verse 1, "Therefore I, a prisoner of the Lord, implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling of which you have been called." Then he goes on to talk about humility and gentleness and patience and so on. Then in verse 17 he says, "So I say this and affirm together with the Lord that you walk no longer just as the Gentiles also walk, in the futility of mind, being darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart, and they having become callous, they have given themselves over to sensuality for the practice of every kind of impurity and greediness. But you did not learn Christ in this way." And so that really goes to, how the book is split up, that the first part of it is about right believing, which is 1 through 3, and then the second part, 4 through 6, is about right behaving. And so if you understand the whole walking concept that Paul's discussing here, he says in chapter 2, "You were far off or brought near." Then he talks about the, you become, change of the inner man and all that stuff. Man, it's just, like you said, it's a very deep book. And that actually sprung this series that I'm doing, Step by Step. It's actually about 12 steps of understanding how to walk with Jesus, how to grow. It's all about encouragement and growing and making a change. And so that really sprung off that study and series for me.
Yep. And to your point about Dan, that's what I'm doing on Sunday evenings. I went through a class with Dan that he taught several years ago online that was how to study the Bible. And I was going back through my notes of it, and I texted him one day and I said, "Hey, I'm wanting to develop a series of sermons for Sunday nights on this. Are you okay with that?" And as you would expect Dan to say, "Absolutely, whatever I've got, used to the glory of God, whatever." But that's what we've been doing on Sunday nights. And it's not really sermon as much as it is like workshop format, what we've been doing. I've been just putting my iPad Bible up on the screen, and we've been noticing the patterns and the context and that kind of thing in the
Yeah.
text. And that's one of those things that we tell people a lot. You need to study the Bible, but we don't teach them how to study the Bible.
Yeah.
And, anyway, and I'll tell you one, maybe we're going to do this in another episode, but a book that I've been reading here lately that I think has really been good. Of course, I teach Psalms and fixing to start that in the middle of March, but I've been going through a book called The Flow of the Psalms, and I'm looking here to see on Kindle. Old Palmer Robertson is the name of one of the things I've always thought was interesting is we believe all of the scriptures to be inspired by God. The book of Psalms is a little bit unusual from other books in that it was Proverbs would be the only one really I think maybe that would kind of fit into this, but it was assembled over a course of time, 5 different books and all. Well, one of the things that I've always thought, though I can't prove it, is that not only was the Psalms inspired in their writing, but I can't help but think that they were inspired in their assembling. Like, which ones do we put in and which ones do we leave out? And even to some degree, like the order in which they're put. And again, I don't agree with everything this guy says, but that's basically the premise of this book is he's showing that it's not like even though every psalm is an individual unit, just like our songs in our songbook are individual units, they were assembled to have a certain flow as you go through the 150 of them. And there's patterns even in the way that they're assembled. So anyway, it's been a good study that is going to be incorporated in my class when I teach it this time. Each time I teach it, it's a little bit different because I've studied more and learned something else. But hopefully one day I'll figure out how to teach it properly. And, but anyway,
You said that was by
that's been a good
Palmer
book.
Robinson?
O. Palmer, the letter O, Palmer Robertson. But anyway, it's been a good, and I don't really know anything about him. I had something else that I had read, an article or something. They had that book as a in the footnotes where they had made a quote from it or something, and I'd never heard of the book, so I looked it up on Amazon and just went ahead and bought it, and I've really enjoyed reading it. But anyway, and we're still in Romans on Wednesday nights. We'll probably be there for all of eternity. I think we're finally in chapter 14, so we're getting
going through it. Our folks were like, "Are we ever going to finish Romans? Is there any other part of the Bible?" Like,
yeah.
Well, Wayne Roberts used to joke with Daniel Mayfield when Daniel came back from the Cayman Islands and was in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. He wanted to be very intentional about his preaching, and so he was preaching through Romans on Sunday mornings. And I can't remember how many years he was there. 3 or 4 years he was at Kingfisher before he moved to Oldham Lane. And I think they were in like Romans 9 by the time he moved. It was 3 or 4 years. Well, Wayne Roberts would always tease him and say, "Daniel, Rome built Rome faster than what you're going through Romans."
Speaking of
that
Romans,
makes me feel better about our pace, at least.
Well, I'm no better than that. It took us a while, two and a half years to get through Romans.
Ooh.
But you think you go on about it. It takes so long to get through. Like, oh, we're going to be in this forever. But if you really think about it, you have 16 chapters in a book that is unbelievably full of information, and you have 30 minutes to 40 minutes a week. It can take a lot longer than that if you really wanted to.
Yeah,
just
and I'm
doing lists.
I'm so what's the word? Focused is not the word, but I'll just use focused. Focused on trying to make sure that I keep it in its context.
Yeah.
That at the beginning of that 40 minutes, I want to spend 5 minutes reminding everybody this is where we are in the flow of the book, and And so by the time you do that, and you know, I'm not the best teacher in the world anyway, so that accounts for a lot of it. But whenever you spend some of your time doing that kind of thing, it's going to end up. And I like to illustrate and make application and that kind of thing. So you're just, I'd rather in a Bible class setting, especially, I'd rather make sure we understand it than just fly through it just to say, well, we got through chapter 4 today. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of books and Romans, throw this out there to everybody. April 24th through the 26th is the Excel Still More Bible Workshop, and it is over Romans chapters 1 through 8. So we're spending 2 years in Romans. So if you are interested in getting a deep study of the book, make sure to mark that on your calendar. Come join us. You can register at excelstillmore.net. Just go to the workshop page and you can register. We also have all the rest of our books that we've done. 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, and Jude, and then, of course, coming in April, Romans 1 through 8. So just got that turned in, all my stuff for the building sessions. We've got a few different things that we're doing this year as far as the workshop goes. We're adding a keywording session with Michael Haidt, and got some good speakers that are coming in for special sessions. So if you're looking for good study material, I'm going to throw that out there. Head over and check all those out.
Yep, and I can say, last year I preached through 1st and 2nd Thessalonians and used both of those books as I was studying, and great resources.
We just hope that they're library worthy. That's been the common theme that all of us have said. If you think it's worthy of your library, then I think that we've accomplished something.
Yep.
So, and you can get them PDF or you can get the actual book, either way.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, there's we're at 47 minutes. We're actually we've set a goal to try and hit an hour each time for our episode, and sometimes we'll be under. Probably more times we'll be a little over. But we are trying to hit that, and so we're talking about ministry that we're a part of and things that we're doing. I know that North Mac, the college group, is growing, and Tyler's doing a lot of stuff with that. And one thing that we're doing with Excel Still More, which brings this podcast and other things, is we're trying to put out a lot of good material, and we have actually been very blessed to make several additions since season 1 of the Untied Podcast ended. So after the first of the year, we made a huge announcement. Probably the announcement I was most excited about is that we added our very own Corey Sawyers to the team. He is the director of Excel Publications, and our first editor that will be helping us with books and articles and all that stuff. And so he's taken all that, and so really
just pause for one moment and let all of my English teachers catch their breath to find out that I'm editing things now.
We have low standards, but yeah, well, we will get through it. Grammarly is a great tool. But that was really exciting for me, for sure, and so glad to have you on there and part of our team. And we've actually got a few other things. Maybe I know here in the next few months we'll probably make another addition to kind of help with things in regard to the work itself. And so we'll make that announcement later on. But another very exciting thing that we have done is we have actually been able to add to the Excel Pod Network. For those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, the Untied Podcast is brought to you by Excel Still More Inc., which is the main the main ministry that we're doing. And a part of that, a branch of Excel Still More, is the Excel Pod Network. And we have added 2 podcasts to the network outside of Untied. One is the Thinking Kingdom podcast, and the Thinking Kingdom podcast has two really good guys. In fact, you can check this out on our website under the Excel Pod. It is hosted by Austin McRickard and Nate Miller, and they have a lot of good conversation, a lot of good interviews. They've interviewed Dan Owen so far, Aaron Gallagher. So be sure and check them out. Really good podcast. So happy they're on with us. And then we have another pretty cool, and I'll let Corey talk about this a little bit more. But another podcast we've added is a daily devotional podcast called the Scripture Spotlight, and it has the second pair of Corey and Garrett. The other Garrett, Corey would say probably the greater Garrett, his son Garrett, and they are doing a devotional podcast, 5 to 7 minutes each morning. They're in 1 Peter. It's been really good. I've since it started, since I actually got back, I have made that a part of my morning routine, and definitely want to encourage you to check that out. So, Corey, you want to throw something out there about that?
Yeah, he's only my favorite Garrett because of DNA, though. So you should know that. I mean, there's a reason why he's my favorite Garrett. Otherwise, you'd be in strong running for top place. But
hey, there is
no,
competition for the other Garrett.
That's
Just
right.
know there's competition.
It's been cool for me, selfishly, as a daddy, to have a project that I could work on in ministry with my oldest son, who, by the way, is a youth minister at the Greenfield, Tennessee congregation. But no, we wanted to do something. I know for a lot of people, long podcasts like Untied or others is something that's hard to fit in their schedule. And, we want people to be in the Word of God every day. And we're not in any way suggesting 5 to 10 minutes is enough to be in the Word of God every day. But if we're going to be honest, how many of our people are actually taking the time to be in it 5 to 10 minutes every day? So we just wanted to do something that would allow you, even with our busy schedules, this is something that while you're driving to work, while you're we've had so many people tell us, I put it on every morning when I'm in the bathroom getting ready to go to school or go to work or whatever. At some point, 5 to 10 minutes. And if you have to miss a day, sometimes when I listen to longer podcasts, if I get behind 2 or 3 episodes, I kind of give up on them. But hours you can really easily pick back up. But even at that, we wanted to be very exegetical in the way we study. And we want this to be something that we can even use as an evangelistic tool. So I'm saying that for our audience to know that you can share this with your religious friends and know that we're not going to, embarrass you or call names or anything. We're just, the tagline of the podcast is where the text is the star of the show. And we just are looking at what the text says. And we spend the first few episodes kind of giving some background of how we can figure out what a book is about or whatnot. But then we're just going through verse by verse and trying to keep it in its context. And, hopefully it can be something that will inspire people to want to study more, but also something you can share with others and say, hey, I get you don't have, an hour to listen to this sermon or whatever, but can you just listen 5 to 10 minutes a day on your way to work or whatever and get a little bit of scripture into your daily routine?
Yeah, it really is a great tool, and I highly encourage people to check it out. Check out both of these podcasts. One thing I think is really neat about what we're trying to accomplish on the Excel Pod, and by the way, I'm very hopeful that in the next few months that we may actually be adding a couple of more. But on the Excel Pod network, we're trying to have a variety of things, and everybody who's added on to our network are going to be good Bible students, honest people, good people that are generally, striving to grow themselves and to help you on your journey as well. And so, we have the Untied podcast, which you said is kind of a longer. We're trying to hit that hour mark, which a lot of people do enjoy. But like you said, there's a lot of people who, they may not have all the time in the world, and they're looking for something that they can have 5 or 10 minutes. And so we've got that now. And then you have Thinking Kingdom that's right around 30 to 35 minutes generally. A lot of good conversation. They've got a lot of interviews, and interview style is always really fun. And then, of course, what's coming, hopefully, if all things work out, we'll have, a little bit more to add to the group of podcasts. So, I do want to do this. I've got to give a shout out and say a very big thank you to Robert Hatfield with the Light Network. If you have not checked out the Light Network, they are another podcasting network. They have a lot of great podcasts over there. And Robert Hatfield, I believe, is the head of that thing over there. And he has helped me out greatly. And I've asked him questions. He's always been willing to answer any question that I have about equipment or even the program that we're using. Highly encouraging. And I'll tell you this, that we did not start this network to compete with anybody, just like we didn't start Excel TV to compete with anybody. We definitely support all good works that are helping and strengthening the kingdom. And the Light Network is one of those. So I want to just give a shout out to them, and especially to Robert for all the help and encouragement that he has offered. And definitely want to encourage you to go check out all their podcasts. They have a big group of podcasts over there, a lot of good ones. So, do that. So I just want to just kind of say that, and a big thank you. He may never hear this, but somebody might. Well, as far as this season, guys, we've got a great season lined up. We have several big picture episodes that we're looking at. We have at least 4 interviews that we're going to do with our ministry spotlights. We want to continue to do that, and we have a lot of really interesting and I think very good topics that we're going to be discussing. Starting next week, we're gonna jump right into thinking biblically about things, and of course, we're continuing to have our untied theme for each one. I'm not going to give the rest of the topics away, but know that we have a 16-episode season, which will take us all the way to right before summer. And we will take a break during the summer, and then our plan is to come back for the fall. So we'll have 2 seasons a year that the Untied Podcast will air, and we just continue to hope that it will bless you in your spiritual walk. So, guys, we're starting to wind down here. We're at 50. I'm keeping an eye on this, right? 57 minutes, 55 seconds. That's where we are. Really excited to be back with you guys. I can't remember who said it. You said you missed everybody. I missed you guys too. For all of our listeners, we certainly have missed you, and so we're excited about this season. So, guys, any closing remarks or anything that you want to add that we haven't discussed? We've got a few minutes left here, but that you want to add before we hop off and end our season 2, episode 1?
Well, 2 things. Number one, I don't know that we've said this, but if you have questions, Bible questions, that would also be another good episode we could slide in there is, answering Bible questions if we get some of those in. And then secondly,
what are the heavenly places?
Where are the heavenly places? Yeah, the heavenlies. And then secondly, Tennessee plays Oklahoma in men's basketball this Saturday, so go Vols.
I like how you slid that one in there. It's going to be a good game.
I used to tell people when I moved out to Tennessee that if you went up to just a random stranger anywhere in Tennessee, West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, and if you just grab their arm and cut them, it would just be orange that came out, nothing else.
Yeah. A lot of people over here bleed red, crimson. Literally.
But that's normal, right? That's natural if you bleed red.
If you think about it, everybody in the world bleeds crimson. But in Tennessee, you bleed orange. I don't understand that.
Yeah, they're sick.
Well, the Bible says a lot about the minority and, the majority and which one of those you want to be in. But,
That's true. But you're washed by the crimson blood of Jesus.
Mm.
Yeah, the crimson stains of sin.
This is going to be, I love being at SEC because this is going to be a good rivalry in every sport between the
Well,
two
particularly
teams.
this year in men's basketball. I mean,
Yeah.
the latest numbers is 13 out of the 16 teams making the NCAA tournament, and 3 of the top 4 seeds being from the SEC. So
Yeah.
every week's a battle.
I know. We really haven't got to talk much about sports and cooking and all that stuff. I'm sure we'll catch up on that in the next episode because there was a lot happening in the sports world.
I've got a new thing that I'm going to try hopefully this weekend, so I'll share that with you next week.
Okay.
All right.
That'll be good. That'll be good. Well, everyone, we're just grateful that you have joined us. As we've stated before, if you have questions about anything, we've got a lot of topics this season. If you have questions about any of those topics, maybe about something that you want us to explain more, or just questions in general, we encourage you to throw them our way. You can drop those questions on our website, excelstillmore.net. You can leave us a comment on any one of our platforms. We're on all the podcasting platforms that are out there. You can message us personally, individually, in any way. Let us know what your questions are. I think that's a great idea to be able to throw some of those in there. I'm actually doing a Q&A here in Hydro in the last Sunday of the month, of each month, and the questions that I've been getting from our folks are just really, really good. And so I think it's a great growing opportunity, not only for you, but also for us to contemplate some of the great questions that you have. And so make sure and submit those. Drop us a like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Help us to grow this podcast. We've had a lot of looked at some of the numbers the other day. We've got some good download numbers, so we are growing. But we need your help to grow more. And if you have enjoyed the conversations that we have had, be sure and share this with others and like all of that, because that does help us on the algorithms and everything for YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And make sure that you know that you can watch. We put this on YouTube and Excel TV so that you can watch the podcast as well. With that, we're just grateful that you have joined us today. We're excited about season 2. We hope that you are too. Remember that you can join us each week on Thursday at noon. And if you're interested in any more of our podcasts, make sure to head over to our website, click on the Excel Pod, and you can find there the Scripture Spotlight and the Thinking Kingdom podcast. Make sure and like those and follow them as well, because they will bless you too. Well, guys, it's been great to talk to you again. I look forward to next week when we can further our conversation and get into some of these topics that we have going on. But until then, we hope that the Lord will continue to bless you in your spiritual walk. And if there's anything we can do to serve and bless you, please let us know. But until next time, stay untied.